Okay, so everybody listening to this, I'm leaving this voice message because of the xenophobia situation that's erupting in South Africa. And I don't believe that it's a good idea to pretend that it's not a big problem. It's a big problem that I think now could actually destroy this country going forward. That would be my view as a geopolitist, investigator, well, maybe investigative journalist, as somebody, again, who's grown up with technology and finance and understands the nature of how the world works. And of course, by luck, of course, have been born and brought up in England of Nigerian parents, and to have been able to see both sides of that, the experience that I had when I was taken to Nigeria, and did some of my schooling there before going back to England, and then going to the United States, which also was a huge impact on my life, which is why a lot of what I do and what I've been able to achieve and what I'm trying to do in terms of, technology, just like by learning from the likes of Google and whatever companies and so on. Most importantly, though, as a Black person, I started blackworld.com. I still own that domain name. I was one of the first people to use the internet, the first 1 million in 1995, something I'm very proud of. And blackworld.com, we were one of the first, let's just say, I don't know, I would say maybe 10,000 websites at the time. And as I said, Black World did campaigns for the biggest US companies, from Microsoft to Disney World to the US Army, IBM, you name it. Okay. And then finally, to say that I even began to research my own Black history, Blackness, Africanness, and humanness. So for a lot of you who've listened to my podcast, I will say it again. I believe human beings are an innate, and it's disconcerting. I believe human beings are an innately evil species, but are learning how to be good. You don't have to agree with me. It doesn't really matter. That's my conclusion about it. Because when you think about godliness, whether it's, Christianity, Islam, or whatever religion, you can see that what human beings are trying to do is they're learning how to be good. And that's good. That's what I call progression. Because when I look at all of human history, it's littered with aggression. So this new aggression that's now about to materialize in South Africa, I think is going to become a big problem unless there is a solution. I'm going to suggest what the solution is going forward. But it's important that I'm leaving this voice message, which I'm going to share with quite a number of people, to voice my opinion about actually who we actually really, really are in the diaspora of African people, that whole global diaspora from Brazil to the United States to Africa itself. Okay, what a lot of people now. So I'm going to start by saying that Nigeria has made a big mistake, which I think it now needs to step up and correct that mistake. Let me explain what that mistake is. I have always said, if you follow my discourse historically on LinkedIn or some of my podcasts or whatever, I've said, not that I believe that Black people have a low IQ, and I've explained that even if you have a low IQ, the good news is that you can raise your IQ. But Black people are bad when it comes to record keeping and how to communicate the contributions that we've made towards humanity, or indeed who we are. I always used to remember in my history of art classes back in England and in the United States, where I was studying, let's just say, mostly Western history of art, from the Renaissance period to modernity, let's say pop art and so on. And I would sit there as the only black person in the class back in England. And I would wonder, and you know, my peers were obviously all whites. There was actually one other black girl. She was brilliant. She was also of African descent in England, born and bred in England. But apart from that, there were no other black people in my class. And I used to wonder that I could see how proud white people were, Caucasian people were in England, of their history, of their art history. So they taught us about Leonardo da Vinci, to Rembrandt, to Monet, to whatever, and so on. And they could articulate it perfectly. In the United States, when I was going through college in the United States at Lake Merritt College, I also remember in my history of art class as well, how the American Caucasian teacher will eloquently and articulately teach us about, again, art history, the history of art, from a European perspective, because of course, that's where most of it actually emanated from. But she was very proud of being of European descent as a Caucasian American. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Most Caucasians, wherever they exist in the world, can actually articulate their history, good, bad, and everything in between. In fact, Europeans will probably be the first to tell you that, oh yeah, we did this wrong, whether it's the Nazi thing that was wrong, or the wars, or colonialism, or slavery. They would actually document all these things, and they would explain to you what was wrong that they actually did. That's how sophisticated the white race is. I'm going to continue with the next one.